Hello, America. This is Call of Duty Goddess. Today is June the 12th, 2016. I'd like to talk about the mass shooting that happened in Florida early this morning. Let's check out this video on it.
We're following the breaking news on the mass shooting in Orlando, Florida that's left 50 people dead and more than 50 people injured. The shooter actually called 911 surrounding the attack to pledge allegiance to ISIS and mentioned the Boston bombers, according to a U.S. official. Evan Perez is getting this information for us. Evan's joining us on the phone. Evan, specifically update our viewers what you've just learned.
Well, Wolf, we know that one reason why FBI immediately believed that this was an Islamic attack was simply because of that phone call that the shooter made. He made a call to 911 around that time of the attacks and pledged allegiance to ISIS. Now, the investigation is still ongoing. There's still a lot of information that is not known because the shooter is dead. They're going to have to put a lot of this together. But we do know that he was investigated, at least in the past, by the FBI. And he wasn't the focus of these investigations, but he was suspected of having ties to Islamic extremists and sympathy with Islamic extremist ideology. We're told that those investigations concluded without any action on him, any charges brought against him. And again, he wasn't the focus of those investigations. His name came up as part of an ongoing investigation of other people. Now, the question that will be asked in the next few days, Wolf, is how someone with that past was able to still continue to work as a private security guard for a company that does a lot of work with the federal government. They have contracts to protect federal buildings, and we know that he worked for one of these major contractors down there in Fort Pierce, Florida, where he lived. Again, that's going to be the top of every official's mind, simply because the fact that he had this job, this private security guard license, allowed him to buy firearms with minimal questions asked. He was able to buy at least one of the firearms that was found at the scene, a Glock pistol. He was able to buy that in the last couple of weeks legally from a firearms dealer in the St. Lucie County area. So we know that that is the source of one of the firearms, and he was able to do that legally, partly because he had this security guard's license that allowed him to do this.
Now, in that video from Communist News Network, you'll notice that they said it may have been an ISIS-related attack. And they did mention that it was Islamic extremism, but they really focused on the weapons, the guns, not the real root of the problem, which is Islam. And that's what I want to talk about today, because my hobby, and my hobby's been this for the last 10-15 years, is studying eschatology. Eschatology is end-time study across all religions and even Nostradamus and stuff like that. And I don't do a lot of videos on it. It's just something that I like to do, and you know, there's a lot of speculation involved in that. So that's why I really don't do videos on a lot of things that are highly speculative. It's just not something I do. I don't do videos on secret societies because of the speculation involved, because you don't really know what's true and what's not. You know, I try to deal mainly with facts to give you an idea. So let's go with the facts here on this mass shooting. And I'm in an article from Heavy. Omar Mateen, that's the name of the killer. 5 fast facts you need to know. And that's from June 12, 2016. That's a picture of him. He has been named as the gunman who killed 50 people and wounded 53 others at the Pulse nightclub in Orlando, Florida. CBS News reported. The gunman was later killed by police after taking hostages at the gay and lesbian nightclub. The shooting was carried out with an AR-15 rifle and a handgun, and is the deadliest in American history. He pledged allegiance to ISIS, the so-called Islamic State, before the shooting, according to a congressman, and I don't care if they're Democrat or Republican, it makes no difference to me. But Mateen is a U.S. citizen of Afghan descent from Port St. Lucie, Florida, according to CBS News. He has ties to radical Islamic ideology. It was said that he was angered by two men kissing at the nightclub. His father told MSNBC that the shooting was not about his son's religion, okay, which is Islam, but that his son became very angry after seeing two men kissing in Miami months ago. And he said, "We are apologizing for the whole incident." Mateen worked as a security guard and drove to Orlando to carry out the attack. So, what you need to know. He called 911 and pledged his allegiance to the ISIS leader before he carried out the attack. Number 2, he was a security officer with a gun license, whose father once tried to run for the Afghan presidency and supported the Taliban. His ex-wife says Mateen beat her and she was rescued from their marriage only after a few months. He was killed by a SWAT team in an effort to rescue hostages. So he took hostages as well. Well, let's get into why this happened. And this is something that I've been wanting to do a video on forever. So let's get started here as to why it happened. Now, I talked about studying eschatology, and I haven't studied everything. Basically because when I started on Islam, I had found some crazy things. And then later on down the line, I had found that the Freemasons are connected with Islam through the Shriners. And like I said, I don't really do a lot of studying on secret societies because it's so speculative. But this is Louis Farrakhan here. This video is of Louis Farrakhan. And he is talking to Nation of Islam and a bunch of Freemasons and Shriners. And I want you to hear a portion of this, and I want to show you a few things. And this really tells you how Islam is being used, is being manipulated, is really brainwashing people to be killers. Just like each and every one of us have been brainwashed in some form or fashion to play a certain role in this game. So let's listen to Louis Farrakhan here.
Later on in 1870, out of Freemasonry came a higher order of Masons called the Shriners. Now the difference between Masons and Shriners is that to be a Shriner, you must be a master Mason in good standing. Now those of you who don't know anything about this, just hold your seats. I'll get back to you in a second. A Shriner belongs to the ancient Arabic order of the nobles of the mystic shrine. But wait, what kind of language is that?
So later on in 1870, he says, the Shriners were created and were enfolded into Freemasonry, and you have to be in good standing and a high level, top level Freemason to become a Shriner. Now, that happened in 1870. Well, I'm at 3 World Wars here. It's a good website to learn a little bit about Albert Pike and stuff. So let's check this out. In 1871, Pike published the 861-page Masonic handbook known as The Morals and Dogma of the Ancient and Accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. I don't think it's a coincidence at all that the Shriners were enfolded into Freemasonry at that same time, because it's very telling what's happening now. You can see the writing on the wall right now that Islam is being used as a bullet for the New World Order. And let me show you how. So I'm in an article titled "The Truth of the Marine Corps Anthem and the United States War with Radical Islam." You see, when our country was very young, We had a war with Islam. That was one of our first wars. And that is why the Marine Corps was created, was to fight radical Islam. They also had leather straps on their necks. Why would you make a soldier wear a leather strap? It's not to keep you standing up straight, for sure. That's what they try to make you believe, which is not true. I mean, it's obvious why they would wear leather straps on their necks, and that's to keep from getting their heads chopped off. So let's find out a little bit about this. I'm down here at this picture and I'll copy and we'll look at it better. Why did two Christian founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson and John Adams, own a Quran, also spelled Quran in English? What is the meaning of the dark and mysterious statue sitting in the courtyard of the U.S. Naval Academy in Annapolis? Why was this statue of ominous decapitated heads, an angel of mercy, a pillar with an American bald eagle resting, and a plaque commemorating a battle not found in most textbooks since the 20th century moved from the steps of the White House in Washington, D.C. to the courtyard of the Naval Academy? So this statue was originally placed on the White House front lawn. It was consequently moved to Annapolis at the Naval Academy, I believe it was. So here you see all these decapitated heads here with an angel of mercy and a bald eagle on top. So back to the article. The Quran is definitely an important document in our national history and demonstrates that Jefferson was a broad, visionary thinker. It would have been something that contributed to his own thinking, and that's what Keith Ellison said. In January 5th of 27, he was the first congressman to be sworn in on the Quran. And it says here, oh, if Representative Ellison had done his research, he would have known just how close his statement was to the truth, but he wouldn't have liked it. You see, in order to see through the cloud of lies, we have to go back to the beginning of U.S. history. We have been at war with radical Islam since the beginning of the United States. The U.S. Marine Corps was founded on this war. The Marine Corps anthem is a declaration of this war. The statue in Annapolis at the Naval Academy that sat in front of the White House commemorates this war. When the United States was founded, our military frigates and our commerce ships were being attacked by pirates, but not your ordinary pirates. These were known as the Barbary pirates, named after the Barbary coast of Africa, with ties to Turkey and the coast of Saudi Arabia. These forces not only sank our ships, but took our crew as slaves to the pirate leaders. The captains of the ships were ransomed to the United States. In 1783, President Washington sent an envoy to meet with Barbary corsairs consisting of Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, and John Adams. When meeting their ambassador, they were told about this new religion, Islam, that dominated the belief system of the Barbary corsairs. Thomas Jefferson ordered a copy to study the religion of this ambassador in an attempt to know his adversary. This was the first English translation of this document and has become known as Jefferson's Quran. Yes, the same one that Representative Ellis swore on. He studied it while he was there and noted in his personal notes, the Quran repeats and plagiarizes many passages of the New Testament, including some of the most fantastic and mythical ones. He was disturbed by this and continued to negotiate with his fellow delegates. He asked the delegate flat out, by what right did they have to attack American ships proceeding through the Strait of Gibraltar? At the end of his negotiations, he reported to then Secretary of State John Jay and to the delegation on the floor of Congress. The ambassador answered us that the right was founded on the laws of the prophet, that there it is written in their Quran that all nations who should not have answered their authority were sinners, that it was their right and duty to make war upon them wherever they could be found, and to make slaves of all they had taken as prisoners, and that every Muslim who should be slain in battle was sure to go to paradise. And that's from the Library of Congress. So, let's look into this religion. I want you to see it with your own two eyes, so there is no misunderstanding about what the Quran says. So I'm at a part of the Quran, and I'll read you a couple excerpts, and I'll leave the link so you can read it and judge for yourself. But I first want to state, before we go any further, that I don't believe that Muhammad wrote the Quran. I believe that Muhammad was illiterate and it was written by someone else. I also want to state for the fact that as a mom, I would literally throw myself on a grenade to save my children's life. And I believe most parents would and feel the same way about their children. So if you multiply that by 100, you'll get the feeling of what a noble king or queen feels about their family and their kingdom. So if you think about it in terms of a king or queen or noble, that they would not only lay on a grenade for their children to carry on their name, because it's so vastly important, because their name carries not only their family but a total kingdom, that they would plan far, far in the future for their kingdom to succeed and get stronger and bigger. Why not plan hundreds, perhaps thousands of years in advance by writing books that attack each other? The Quran expressly attacks Christians. It expressly attacks Jews. It has Jesus' name in it. They do think that Jesus was a prophet, but it expressly tells them to kill. So let's check this out. So I'm at Quran 3, and we'll scroll on down here to 151. We shall cast terror into the hearts of those who disbelieve, because they joined others in worship with Allah, for which He had sent no authority. Their abode will be the fire, and how evil is the abode of the polytheists and wrongdoers. Now what they're talking about is the Holy Trinity here, how Jesus is part of God, God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. They're saying, cast terror in the hearts of those who disbelieve. Our founding fathers read this book. They saw this. They actually had Qurans written up. I've seen where there was a video where they had that first page of the Quran that said, Christians beware, you need to read this book. That was basically what it was saying. So let's go to the next part here. So now I'm at the Quran part 4. Give you another example. 474. Let those believers who sell the life of this world for the hereafter fight in the cause of Allah, and whose fights in the cause of Allah and is killed or gets victory, we shall bestow on him great reward. That's for your martyrs. They'll get a great reward in the afterlife. If they die for the cause of Allah, they will be rewarded greatly in the afterlife. They wish that you reject faith as they have rejected faith, and thus that you all become equal like one another. So take not protectors or friends from them till they immigrate the way of Allah to Muhammad. But if they turn back from Islam, take hold of them and kill them wherever you find them, and take neither protectors or friends nor helpers from them. And here's from 4:104. And don't be weak in the pursuit of the enemy. If you are suffering, then surely they too are suffering hardships as you are suffering. But you have a hope from Allah for the reward of paradise, that for which they hope not, and Allah is ever all-knowing, all-wise. And now I'm at the Quran part 8, Go down to 12. Remember when your Lord the angels, verily I am with you. So keep firm those who have believed. I will cast terror into the hearts of those who have disbelieved. So strike them over their necks and smite over all their fingers and toes. O you who believe, when you meet those who disbelieve on the battlefield, never turn your backs on them. Here's from the Quran 8:39, and fight them until there is no more disbelief and polytheism, worshipping of others besides Allah, and the religion worship will all be for Allah alone in the whole of the world. But if they cease worshipping others besides Allah, then certainly Allah is all-seer of what they do. So basically, they're telling people to fight and kill for Allah until the whole world believes Allah. There are many, many more, but I'm not going to waste any more time reading this book. You are more than welcome to. I will leave the links for these. As the book goes further on, it gets more and more violent. So now that we are in the month of Ramadan, which is June the 5th through July the 5th, Muslims have to honor the time which they believe God revealed the first verses of the Quran. It is the month in which all Muslims atone and seek nearness to Allah by fasting and abstaining from sex and smoking and reading the Quran. Now, what does the Quran tell them to do? There's many, many more places in there where it tells them to kill the infidel. What did Muhammad do? He was a killer. He wanted to take over the world and make them bow down to what he believed. So, let's get on to Al-Sisi here. Now, Al-Sisi is the Egyptian president that took over from the puppet president that Obama put in there after the people of Egypt protested in the streets and threw that Muslim Brotherhood president out. So let's hear what this man has to say, and this is the first and only time I have heard, and this man is Muslim. You need to listen to what he says if you haven't heard it yet. And this was from December 2014, I believe.
كنا تكلمنا قبل كده عن أهمية الخطاب الديني، وأنا هرجع وأقول إن إحنا مش متحركين في ده. الخطاب الديني الحقيقي، الإشكالية مش موجودة أبداً في عقيدة، الإشكالية ممكن تكون موجودة في فكر. الفكر ده يقدس بينا. هو ده اللي إحنا بنتكلم عليه، الخطاب الديني اللي نقصده، اللي هو بيتناغم مع عصره. أنا بكلم هنا على أهل الدين والمسؤولين عنه. لازم نتوقف كثيرا، الحقيقة نتوقف كثيرا على الحالة اللي موجودة، وأنا اتكلمت في الموضوع ده مرة واتنين الحقيقة قبل كده. نتوقف كثيرا قدام الحالة اللي احنا موجودين فيها. مش معقول يكون الفكر اللي احنا بنقدسه ده يدفع بالأمة دي بالكامل إن هي تبقى مصدر للقلق وللخطر والقتل والتدمير في الدنيا كلها. مش ممكن يكون الفكر ده. أنا مش بقول الدين، أنا بقول الفكر ده اللي تم تقديسه، نصوص وأفكار تم تقديسها على مئات السنين، وأصبح الخروج عليها صعب قوي، لدرجة إن هي بتعادي الدنيا كلها. بتعادي الدنيا كلها. يعني 1.6 مليار هيقتلوا الدنيا كلها اللي فيها 7 مليار عشان يعيشوا هم؟ مش ممكن. الكلام ده أنا بقوله هنا في الأزهر، هنا أمام رجال وعلماء الدين. والله لأحاجيكم يوم القيامة أمام الله سبحانه وتعالى على اللي أنا بتكلم فيه ده دلوقتي. أنت مش ممكن تكون وأنت جواه حاسس بيه، مش ممكن وأنت جواه تكون حاسس بيه. لازم تخرج منه وتتفرج عليه وتقراه بفكر مستنير حقيقي. ده أنت محتاجين تتوقفوا بشدة. وأنا بقول تاني، إحنا محتاجين ثورة دينية. فضيلة الإمام، أنتم مسؤولين أمام الله. الدنيا كلها منتظرة منكم، الدنيا كلها منتظرة كلمتكم، لأن الأمة دي بتمزق، الأمة دي بتدمر، الأمة دي بتضيع، وضياعها بإيدينا احنا اللي بنضيعها.
Now, pictures are worth 1,000 words. I have a few pictures from when Obama put the puppet president into Egypt. And these are from the protests that happened from that. See this? And another one. These people knew what was happening. This is where this man is thanking the Egyptian army. I don't remember seeing any of these at all on the news when this was taking place. And this is what happened in Egypt. And they then placed Al-Sisi in, the man you just watched, the man who admitted to what the religion that he is part of. He admitted what their religion does. He asked the clerics and Muslim leaders to do something about it. What did they do? Nothing. They called for the caliphate, the global jihad, and our president's helping them, along with the secret societies. So, America, this is not going to stop until we stand up. It's going to be happening all over this country. It's happening in Europe as we speak. And I've got to say, I'm a simple-minded kind of gal, okay? If someone is carrying a knife, the book that they study, read, and believe to be true tells them to kill me, well then, I'm concerned about them. Maybe this other book says this other book says that. But these people are the ones with the swords, with the guns, and with the bombs that tells them to kill me because I don't believe in Allah. That's just how it goes. I don't see a bunch of Jews running around trying to chop my head off. I'm worried about the people who are going to kill me and mine, and you and yours. They are the ones carrying the bombs, the guns, and the knives. They are being put in our system, and they are not going to assimilate, just like they haven't assimilated in Europe. Now, you can believe what you want to believe, but again, the people that are carrying the knives are the ones that are reading the book, the ones that I just showed you. So let's go with a quick recap here. Mass shooting in Florida. Just so happens it was during the month of Ramadan. What is Ramadan? Time for Muslims to seek nearness to Allah. What does their Quran tell them? Not good things. We have Louis Farrakhan speaking about the coming together, so to speak, of Islam with the secret societies, and that is through the Freemasons and the Shriners. The truth about the war we had with Islam, Albert Pike really clinched it for us with the Shriners. I believe it was his doing because he was the head of the Scottish Rite Freemasonry. And then you have Al-Sisi begging the clerics, telling people, please, we're killing people. Please, this has got to stop. And I also briefly touched on a kingdom and how I believe royalty is using Islam, and I think that royalty, namely the Rothschilds, created Israel using the Bible. You know, and that does not mean the people that live in Israel are bad. It doesn't mean, since the CIA helped the Taliban and trained and armed them to fight Russia, and now they've become ISIS, and we're still training and arming ISIS. Well, that is wrong. That's bad. But that does not mean the people of the country are wrong. It means that our leaders are way off base and that we need to get rid of them. So that's what I wanted to touch on about the kingdom and how it's planned in advance. The Rothschilds definitely, I believe, used the Bible for their benefit. And you never know, maybe they had a hand in writing the Quran or any other biblical works for that matter. Who knows? All that is speculation, but some of these things you can see the writing on the wall. So, there you have it, folks. That's really what's going on. Now, you want to believe whoever does this at the top of the food chain, whatever, I don't know, but because I'm a simple kind of gal, the thing that I'm worried about is the people that's carrying the knives, the people that it's in their religion to kill the infidel. And yes, they are being used. Yes, they are being manipulated. But that doesn't change the fact that they are the ones carrying the knives. They have taqiyya. Taqiyya is that you can lie to the infidel. They have so many things in this religion that is totally insane. Islam is being used by the secret societies. And there were 4 presidents: Harding, Roosevelt, Truman, and Ford. Franklin Delano Roosevelt was a Muslim Shriner. All 4 of these presidents were Muslim Shriners, and there was 1 honorary Muslim Shriner. And all of these Muslim Shriner presidents did something incredible. They were absolutely pivotal in what is happening today. The laws that they created through executive orders were pivotal in what is happening today in our society. But that'll be for another video. So, I wanted to share that with you. And this is Call of Duty Goddess. And I'd like to hear what you think. Signing off, and as always, I've got your 6, and I'll leave all the links below.